May the words of my mouth and the meditations of each heart be holy and acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. Thy rage implacable too well I knew. The furies that relentless breast have steeled and cursed thee with a heart that will not yield. Yet think a day will come when fate's decree and angry God shall wreak this wrong on thee. Phoebus and Paris shall avenge my fate and stretch thee here before the Scaean gate. These are the last words the dying Hector spoke to Achilles in the Iliad. Maybe I should have led with, spoil alert, Achilles kills Hector in the Iliad, but I assume no one here is just chomping at the bit to go home and dive into the Iliad, so I thought that was safe. There's something that happens quite often in ancient Near Eastern and Mediterranean literature. It's a kind of device occurring when certain characters are nearing or even sensing their approaching death. It's not my life is flashing before my very eyes, I now understand the meaning of my own existence kind of device that we often see in contemporary American literature or film. You know, like the Rosebud moment in Citizen Kane. No, in the ancient Mediterranean stories, the dying person receives and shares a unique insight into the lives of other people. It is a moment in which not the dying, but the living receive wisdom, direction, and instruction. Which is why Hector, the Prince of Troy, says at his very end, yes, I knew, Achilles, you would be the victor, but watch out, because death, she's breathing down your neck too. You see, he's speaking last words for the living. Tonight, this Maundy Thursday, we are in the Gospel of John. It is a gospel that emerged from this ancient Mediterranean world, this Greco-Roman culture in which we listen to Jesus knowing death is on the horizon, speak some of his last words to his disciples. No life flashing before his eyes kind of scenario, no moment of personal enlightenment or existential fulfillment, none of that, true to the form of the time. He is offering a unique insight into the lives of those closest to him, but in a very different way. Now, I think we do something. I think we often try to put ourselves into the story. We try to imagine what it was like being one of the disciples, and that is a wonderful thing to do, and we shouldn't stop doing that. But tonight, let's just try something else. Try to imagine what it was like being in the community that compiled and put together and wrote the Gospel of John, and even more what it was like to read and even hear it, maybe for the first time, this story in their day and age. And even if many of them weren't necessarily raised on the Iliad or heard the epic tales of the Greco-Roman gods and goddesses and world sitting around the dinner table, the people of Israel, they too had epic tales, raised on the stories of what we call the Old Testament. There's no shortage of heroes and daring deeds and violence and struggle and victory, especially for, shall we say, the messianic warrior king image that many anticipated. Gird your sword on your side. That's what Psalm 45 says. Ride forth victoriously. Let your sharp arrows pierce the hearts of your enemies. Let the nations fall before your feet. So all these images, whether they be Greek or Roman or Jewish, mixed together, and they crisscrossed and they found their way into the imaginations of all people. So the disciples and Jesus are all gathered in this room. It's Passover. It's Jerusalem. People have flooded into the city from all over. It's a politically tumultuous time, and Rome knows that. That's one of the reasons Pontius Pilate is there. Extra soldiers and guards are scattered throughout the streets of Jerusalem, and Jesus certainly has already caused quite a stir, quite a disturbance. Death is on the horizon. So what brave words will be spoken to his disciples? What parting wisdom or warning will they receive that will fill their hearts with such courage and daring so they can carry out the epic mission of victory they all think they're a part of? Just think of the anticipation and expectation those first hearers or readers of this gospel possessed. And then the gospel says, Jesus got up from the table, took off his outer robe, tied a towel around himself. Then he poured water into a basin and began to wash their feet. What? He washed their feet, the act of not only a servant, but the task given to the servant on the lowest rung, and it was usually done at the very beginning, right after the guests had arrived, not during supper. No one would interrupt supper for such an act. What kind of man is this? What kind of person? What kind of teacher or sage? What kind of leader would do such a thing? Of course, the disciples don't understand, and anyone hearing this story or reading it for the very first time wouldn't have understood it either. Can't you just see them listening or reading and scratching their heads and asking? He washed all their feet? Yes, yes. I mean, even the women's? Yes. The children. The children there, you think he washed theirs too. Well, what about this Judas, the betrayer? Yes, even Judas. He washed Judas's feet. Everyone's, yes, everyone's. But why? Well, listen to what he says. You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right. And if I've washed your feet, so you must wash one another's feet. That's the example I'm setting. Now, isn't that something? Can you see Achilles washing Hector's feet? How about Odysseus stooping down to wash the feet of the betrayer, Melanitheus? Did Jacob in the Old Testament ever exercise such humility before Esau? Or did David, the man after God's own heart, the warrior king, do ever such a thing to his pursuer Saul? No. But here, in the Gospel of John, we have Jesus, God enfleshed, wiping the dirt and the dung and the dust from everyone's feet. This isn't just a nice, humble thing Jesus is doing. Nor is it Jesus saying, I'm the only one who gets to do this. Being God, I'm the only one who can pull it off. No. See, this is Jesus dismantling the disciples' notions of authority and leadership and belonging, and this is the Gospel of John being subversive in a culture hell-bent on hierarchy and honor and position and privilege. In these words, Jesus leaves with them. When everyone in this Mediterranean world knows when to lean into the story, right? Tuning their ears to hear the words from the man who's about to die, listening for his last words for the living, listening for the words of judgment or condemnation or revenge or just deserts or rebuke, and they hear him say, love one another. Love one another as I have loved you. By this love, everyone will know you belong to me. Everyone will know you are my disciples if you love. Amen.